All right, I know I said Breakfast Club was my favorite. Take it back. I love them all except for Weird Science equally. Ooh, what up? Bobalicious here. I mean, Bobo from BrassReel Brothers. What the hell was that? Thanks for joining me again. Well, I've done some other stuff in between, like some new movie reviews for like New Mutants and Tenet, and just recently Unhinged. So if you haven't watched those, check those out on this channel. But now I'm continuing and finishing up the John Hughes marathon, at least for the written and directed films that he did. The final one, Uncle Buck. Starring John Candy. And it's got Macaulay Culkin in it too. So like I said at the very beginning of the video, and if you watch the other ones, you've heard me say that Breakfast Club is my favorite, then it was Ferris Bueller's, then it was The Rest, and then Weird Science being the last one. I still think that's his worst movie. It's not a bad movie, I love it, it's just my least favorite. But now after watching Uncle Buck, screw it. They're all his best ones except for Weird Science. Man, I feel like that actually as a filmmaker, he peaked at Uncle Buck. I haven't watched Curly Sue in a long time, but for some reason that one just feels disconnected to these 6 that I've covered. But like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles felt like the graduated film after the first 4 high school films he did. This one kind of combines high school and mature stuff. Like there's kids in it you follow in the film, but you follow John Candy's character as well and what he's dealing with as an adult. So it actually is a hybrid of the high school feel and the Planes, Trains, and Automobile feel. I love this movie, man. It is awesome. It's definitely got the same tone and pace of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in my opinion, while it being the, real kooky throughout, occasionally throwing that emotional ninja star in there to kind of get you involved with the character, but then coming right back out of it being funny, finally hitting some serious moment at the end that really actually gets you some tears. But John Candy is hilarious, which by the way, man, I hate to say this, God rest his soul, but at this point in his career, he had gotten huge. And I don't mean successful fame-wise, I mean big, massive. The guy just had gained a lot of weight at that time, and he didn't die too long after this movie. And I remember when he died. I was definitely very young, and I remember thinking, he's only got a few movies, how can he be dead already? But Uncle Buck is just about this mid-80s typical family that you got Macaulay Culkin as a kid. You got this one daughter named Maisie who's super cute, and then you got the teenage daughter I remember as a kid thinking she was so hot. The mother's father dies and they have to leave in the middle of the night and they have to get somebody to watch these kids. And they can't think of anybody or they can't find anybody, and they finally decide on his brother, the dad's brother, Buck, Uncle Buck. And Buck is totally different than the family you're seeing started off with. He's a nightlife guy, he goes to bars, he plays pool, he's a bachelor, lives on his own. They're very regimented, conservative, business-like, and just cookie-cutter type good family. So the whole idea is this fish out of water with him being with this family having to watch these kids. Right away at the beginning of the movie when it opens up, you start hearing this piano music by our newborn again. God, I love that guy. I mean, you start getting emotional when you hear the music because you've seen John Hughes films up at this moment and it sort of tickles your soul for a second being like, oh man, this is what I'm in store for. Get ready to laugh, feel good and cozy and warm inside, and maybe learn something at the end. And God, the 2 kids are so freaking cute in this, especially Macaulay Culkin. The little girl that plays Maisie, she's cute, but Macaulay Culkin's character, I personally think this might be his best role. Like Home Alone he was great in both of those movies. Obviously The Good Son as a horror film, I love that one. I gotta review that at some point. But just everything from the way he's cursing in the beginning, I mean the kid's got a little like potty mouth, little foul mouth, but it's like an experienced foul mouth the way he curses, it's hilarious.
Oh, let's have a cow. Your nails are digging to my arm, god damn it. Up.
Everything from him talking about the kid's dog that's a ball sniffer.
The dog's a ball sniffer. I know another word. Nuts.
Everything about Macaulay Culkin's character is hilarious in this. He's got these one-liners that come back real quickly.
Waiting for your sex?
The way he talks about John Candy cooking breakfast for him.
Holy smokes. He's cooking on garbage.
And later on he says something about flu season when he sees his sister making out with this guy. And the little girl is like, I bet she's getting the tongue.
That's a pretty stupid thing to do during flu season. I bet she's getting the tongue.
I love all that stuff. It's so like abrasive a little bit for those little kids, which is why it makes you laugh so hard at it. And the teenage girl who looks a lot like Jennifer Grey or is like that same style, she portrays this girl that's at the stereotypical, point in every teenage girl's life where they hate everything, they don't get along with their mother. And man, she's really nasty to her mother. She says some terrible stuff.
my whole family moved away from me, I'd have a heart attack too.
And she treats John Candy like shit the whole movie. She's terrible to him. She says just things to try to demean and degrade him. Things that he probably already either knows about himself or has heard from other people. She tries to interfere with his love life and lie to this girl that John Candy's with. Her name's Shanice, which to me is the perfect on-screen pair-up for a couple. It just makes sense. It works. I believe it. One of the problems and conflicts in this film that they're portraying is that the daughter doesn't get along with anybody, including her own parents, doesn't get along with John Candy, especially doesn't get along with John Candy. She loves her brother and sister, but she's still just she's got better things to do in her life. They do a very good job of portraying the family in the very beginning of the movie. As always, John Hughes and his exposition for films is perfect and seamless. You don't even realize you're being explained about these characters. The movie's just going and doing its thing. He's a master at that. And it's full of funny and cute, memorable moments with the kids and just funny little slapstick stuff with John Candy here and throughout. It's all littered throughout. It's kind of funny that John Hughes films, whether he writes them or writes and directs them or produces them, he does use some of the same things. He'll pull from this and take it over here. Like, for example, the daughter and the mother in this movie, it's the same dynamic as Macaulay Culkin and Catherine O'Hara's character in Home Alone and Home Alone 2, where they hate each other, they're always at each other's throats, and then of course there's a resolve at the end. But Buck's character is he's so lovable, but he's a nuisance. You know, he's a big teddy bear, but he's always messing stuff up. From waking up the neighbors and knocking on the door at the wrong house, cooking in the kitchen in the morning when he wakes the kids up. Oh God, what he's doing to that kitchen. To immediately breaking the china in the house right when his brother and sister-in-law leave.
Unbreakable.
And I love when he talks about quitting smoking.
Hey, I stopped smoking cigarettes.
Oh, good.
Isn't that something? I'm on to cigars now. Yeah, I'm onto a 5-year plan. I eliminated the cigarettes, then I go to cigars, then I go to pipes, then I go to chewing tobacco, then I'm onto that nicotine gum.
Good.
Yeah.
And once we get introduced to Bug, the teenage daughter's boyfriend, oh, that guy, even as a little kid, I remember thinking, man, this guy, what a prick. And I love the way Buck just turns and sort of sometimes pretends to be like a homicidal maniac, threatens to kill him and starts talking about ways he will with his hatchet and other things like that.
We can talk about burying the hatchet. You know what a hatchet is, don't you, Bug? I got one in the car if you'd like to see it. I like to carry it, you know. You never know when you're gonna need it.
And the first time you get to see that kid is actually when Buck pulls up to the school with his car. And that's when you get some of that really good slapstick right there. I love that. Oh, and Laurie Metcalf as the neighbor that comes over, Marcy. Oh, everything from the clothes she's wearing, from the way she acts, her hair, the dancing she's doing with him. I love she's doing the whole.
Dips.
She's just great. I love her in everything she's in. Everything from when she was in Roseanne to her being one of the killers in Scream 2. Yeah, and she plays Sheldon's mom on The Big Bang Theory. But anyways, I think that she's great. She's hilarious. She's a nice little fun little side addition to the film that just gets thrown in and then it's gone. When he takes the kids to the bowling alley though, that's when you get just a total glimpse back into how smutty and trashy the 80s really could be. If it wanted to, especially in places like bowling alley. Smoking everywhere. Everybody that walks around is just so sleazy, the type of people that hang out there. I remember going there growing up a little bit. Not everybody that hung out there was like that, but you definitely saw a lot of people that were like that. In fact, my best friend growing up, his name was Bobby, just like mine. For a few years, we were inseparable, and we went to the bowling alley every Friday night, and I just remember seeing certain people like that all the time. So as soon as I saw this movie as a kid, that's what I related that to. And you get that creepy guy with the toothpick, and he gets it stuck in his mouth, he's trying to hit on the teenage daughter. And I love how Uncle Buck just always switches when he's like super protective. Even though it's not his daughter, he's still just like, ooh, I'm gonna kill you. Fuck. Like when the clown shows up at the birthday party, he's all excited and then he realizes he's drunk and it just switches gears immediately. He's like, oh, what are you, drunk or something? And then he's just like, boom. But probably the most famous scene of the movie is when he's walking into elementary school and he goes to talk to the principal about little Maisie and you got the Wild Things song playing, you know. And when the principal starts dogging on Maisie, you see it again, Uncle Buck pop into action. He's like, nah, don't you talk about my family. Starts talking about her mole and gives her a quarter and tells her to go down to an alley and get a rat to gnaw it off. I don't even know what that means, but it was great.
Take this quarter. Go downtown and have a rat gnaw that thing off your face. Good day to you, madam.
So basically, at the beginning of the movie, your impression of Uncle Buck, even as an audience member, is like, he's kind of a lowlife. He's just, doesn't really do a lowlife. He's just dragging along. By the end of the film, you're like, Uncle Buck's a badass. The whole final act of the movie is the best part, in my opinion. When he was at the bowling alley earlier with the kids, he steps aside with one of his friends and they're talking about this betting thing going on at the racetracks and how they can kind of cheat on this bet. He's going to be there on Friday night. She's supposed to stay home with the kids that weekend. Well, she screws him and she beats him and she leaves for the weekend without telling him. So he's faced with this dilemma, do the right thing. Do I do this bet thing and just bring the kids with me because it's important? You know what? I can't get her off my mind. And he decides, it's almost like the end of Unbreakable or a Vigilante story or something. He's like, you know what? I gotta go save her. Finds Bug, and he's not even with her. He ended up like splitting on her and breaking up with her. So Uncle Buck ends up finding her walking down the street and she's all heartbroken. And they have this beautiful scene where they're in the car together and they realize a lot about each other. It's a nice bonding moment for the two. And you get emotional. John Hughes, I'm telling you, just emotional ninja stars. I mean, just before you even know it, it just turns into that and you're like, oh. Like beforehand, he's walking in to trying to knock down this door and bust Bug, and it like feels all horror movie, and then it's like he saves the day, and it's all this like fun stuff, and then all of a sudden it's just super emotional. And then you're just like, what's so great about that scene now, they're in the car, they're having these heartfelt moments with each other. And she's like, what'd you end up doing to Bug? And you get the classic scene where he's duct taping the back and they're still acting crazy with him. She's got the drill in her hand. And then he starts hitting golf balls at him and knock him in the head while he's duct taped. It immediately made me start thinking about that movie, The Loved Ones. Obviously, if anybody ever did that, you go to jail for that. But it's a beautiful movie. It was made in 1989. You always suspended disbelief in these films. A little. At the end, still that Our Newborn music kicks back in again, and it's just... How does that guy do that with those 80s keyboards and everything and just get to your heart like that? It's resolved now with Uncle Buck and his older niece. They're like cool. And she goes and tells Shanice that she's made all this stuff up and everything's starting to get good, right? And then right at the end, and you get a nice little comic relief to tap out the movie with the pots falling and alleviates some of that emotion. Man, this movie's awesome. I love everything about it. I think it's great. Macaulay Culkin is hilarious in it. But so is John Candy, God rest his soul. I don't remember him doing a whole lot more after this, like starring roles. I know he had a movie called Wagons East with Richard Lewis, I think he died while he was doing that movie. But he actually has a cameo in the next and final movie of this whole thing that I'm doing, which is written by John Hughes, the second written by John Hughes coming up. So, Uncle Buck, some John Hughes popcorn right there. Well guys, thank you so much again for joining me for some more popcorn. I really appreciate y'all guys tuning in. Anything y'all can do to keep hitting that subscribe and like button, sharing with your friends is greatly appreciated. I love y'all with all my heart. Keep your eyes out for the finale of this marathon, Career Opportunities, with Frank Whaley and the hot, magnificent Jennifer Connelly. Well guys, love y'all with all my heart. Look for BrassReel Brothers on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, BrassReel Bobby. Look for me on Twitter, BrassReel Bobby at BrassReel. And remember, life gives you lemons, make some hot, fresh popcorns.
Where do you live?
In the city.
Do you have a house?
Apartment.
On a rent?
Rent.
What do you do for a living?
Lots of things.
Where's your office?
I don't have one.
How come?
I don't need one.
Where's your wife?
Don't have one.
How come?
It's a long story.
Do you have kids?
No, I don't.
How come?
It's an even longer story.
Are you my dad's brother?
What's your record for consecutive questions asked?
38.
I'm your dad's brother, all right.
You have much more hair on your nose than my dad.
How nice of you to notice.
I'm a kid, that's my job.